All right. Have you had an opportunity to open your board packet, and it's under the board workshop? There is one page in there that's a little fuzzy, and I'll try to just read the last two numbers to you when we get there to make sure that you understand what we have, because it was a little fuzzy when I looked at it a couple minutes ago. The first part for this budget workshop is to try to look at some of the existing conditions we have surrounding the budget. And then what I asked Beth to do was to let's kind of get a good idea about where we might be based on last year's budget to this year's budget. So we're not necessarily doing comparison, but she took last year's numbers and tried to estimate a little bit and put it into this year's budget. And so she did that. What these numbers do not reflect are any of the requests that we had from last time. Those are things that will be discussed as we move forward and as we get an idea about how much money is actually there, specifically for raises, number one, which we know the governor is. It's difficult to understand right now exactly what he's talking about, but he's putting money in a lot of different pots. Like, for instance, he's putting money into textbooks, and I don't know when that's ever happened in the history since I've been in education. The textbooks have become a very big hot button issue as far as curriculum and that type of thing, so they're going to maybe put more money there. They do put money in there for textbooks. It's one of our line items, but him specifically singling that out is a little rare. But at the same time, there are other things going on where he'll look at, type of positions we can generate based on what we have, and then we will go from there. Now, Beth, the estimates probably will start coming in. Federal normally comes in sometime in April, and then we get our initial estimate, and then we kind of work on it through April up to May, hopefully being able to secure whatever we can to put the budget together. So this is a preliminary look, and if you look at the first one, the history of allocations for the city school system, you see that what happened last year is there's level funding again in our operating budget. And right now, because we do not know anything dealing with capital or an operating increase, that's what we're reflecting as zero change, but we know the city will come forward with a $2.4 million over there. We'll update you on that in coming weeks. The next one is BEP allocations. Because the governor has told us we'll have possibly a 4% raise, which, as you all know, what we've done historically is if we received a 4% raise, we would try to outfit everyone over and above what the BEP provided. So we would try to, if we gave certified staff a 1.5 or a 2.0 raise, we would give that to our classified staff as well. And so that's not reflected yet for us, but we anticipate, he said, a 4%, that may end up shaking out. We know it'll at least be 1%, depending on how much happens on the other side. So when we look at the raise, we look at a combination of benefits and additional money for our folks. So where we pay 100% of insurance, that, some of that raised money is going to go into insurance and benefits for employees, as well as the actual money that they would receive. So in the end, we'll talk about a raise in just a minute, but in the end, our goal will be to give as much of a raise as we can and also keep their benefits level to where they don't have to pay, or pay a very small amount if they take the premium plan. Okay, let's go to the next one. The local option sales tax revenue. If you'll look at that, it's up a bit, not too much, about $25,000, a little less than $25,000. So that is going in the right direction. So we will have that. We'll see what happens with tax rates coming up and what we're able to collect on property tax, and we'll get those projections soon. But these are, when does the city, Beth, when do they have to set their tax rate by? Is it by June 1st?
The
Can't-
county has to have that in place somewhere around the July 1 timeframe.
Yeah,
What we're waiting for now is it comes out into March, 1st of April.
Right.
The weighted
Yeah.
ADA between us and the county schools for this year to see whether we gain or lose how their ADA falls out. And Johnson City has a small portion of our tax money.
they do, yes. Okay.
How come?
Because in Johnson City, if you go over by past Milligan, on that left-hand side, Lewis Road, Old Lewis Road, and that area, Martindale, that's Carter County and Johnson City. The other thing is the property revenue. Property tax revenue is up a bit as well, so that is good news for us as well. All right, the next one is the history of insurance and the estimated projection of what we might have now. Historically, we've seen increases just about every year in insurance. You'll notice if you look at last year what the projected amount was, we really didn't have any increase whatsoever last year in medical. We expect that there'll be a pretty significant increase this year. That's why I'm saying that the raise may not be as much, where we're having to pay more on medical. But everything else is pretty close, a little bit of fluctuation, but pretty close. And we'll look at a percentage increase of 6.09% based on these guesses right now until we have hard numbers. Is there anything else you want to say, Beth, on that?
A lot depends on the number of retirees. And
Yeah.
This past year, we had several come on and didn't continue on, so we'll see how that pans out in June for next year.
Okay. If you move to the next page, we're looking at the salary scale increase. You can see what the total cost of the step increase is going to be for each area. So that comes out, no matter what, for us to be able to afford our step increases for the following year, it's going to be about $160,000 to do that. Now BEP will reflect an increase, but then you can see how much funding we would likely need to generate to be able to handle different percentage increases. So when we come to the time when we're deciding on salary and we see what our total money is that we have in there, then we'll go down and we'll kind of look at this chart and look at the different ones and see what we can afford. Okay. All right. I'm willing to take questions, and Beth and I on specific
Question
questions.
I've got, enrollment-wise, where do we stand enrollment-wise? Are we increasing from year to year, or, because a lot of that's how our BEP comes around, is through our enrollment. How is our total enrollment? Is it up from last year, or?
It is up. We'll have to, you know what I need to do? Let me go back and run a report, and I'll send it to the board, and we'll look at this date last year.
Yeah, or maybe
look
if
at
we could get a 5-year
this
history
date
of
this
our
year.
enrollment
Yeah.
and how that looks. And then it's up to you how far you want to break it down per school or something like that. That would be kind of helpful for us to see where our growth is.
Right.
Because I know T.A. Duggar's had pretty substantial
They have.
increase in enrollment.
We have had a very full, when I say very full, we dropped a little bit, but we gained a few more students coming back the second semester. And we've been steadily trying to take students when we can, where we have room and space. There's some schools where their cluster average is, if we're talking about West Side, and East Side, when they get to a point where our cluster average is to the point where we can't, take any more, we're afraid we're close, we'll just say we're not going to take any more students at that point. We do have room at Harold McCormick right now, and based on that, we're going to be doing some work this coming year to try to level things out a little bit more. You try to give parents their request, but also make sure that we're, you know, that every class, we would love that every class along the way, if they're all in first grade classes, we would have some even numbers. Right now, we have, at Harold McCormick in some classes, we have 14 or 15, whereas if we go to the west side or east side, we may have 25 or 20, depending on what the situation is. And so I want to make sure we're trying to devise a plan on that right now to level that out a bit. One of the things is anybody who is applying to come in right now, we're trying to move them to Harold McCormick when they want to come in at this late point, to try to even those out as much as possible, give our teachers an even experience, you know, and manageable load.
In the evening and out, do you redraw your lines?
Well,
That
no.
gets into a real
No,
nightmare.
it doesn't, but when you're a family wanting to pay tuition, and you want to come in mid-year, you know, I've been trying to approve folks for tuition to move into Harold McCormick. So. Are there any other questions about the budget? And I know that's preliminary. I know there'll be more questions as we have some hard numbers for you to look at. But we'll try to do our best as time goes to, in the coming weeks and through the month of March, we'll try to have as much information. You'll have it when we have it. That way, when we come to our next March meeting, we should have a little bit better idea, but still some of the federal money will get our first, normally I think, John, what is it, April 1st, we're normally looking at federal money coming in. Our first, I can't remember if it's April 1st or April 10th, around that time.
Varies.
Yeah, but the first part of April, first couple weeks of April, we normally have that, so we'll set that. And then we'll hopefully be ready to decide on everything by May 15th in that time frame for that board meeting.
Well, what do we think the 4% increase will be number-wise? Do you have any idea of what we're looking at?
It's hard to say. Beth, you want to explain how BEP goes on that?
No, they base it on an average salary.
Yep.
So they'll have to determine the average salary, with the 4% to determine that. Then we'll get funded according to the formula for the number of positions that the formula generates at that average salary. And we are above the
Right.
average salary. And we have more teachers than the formula generates, plus they don't give us 100% of the salary generated. So, and until they interpret and they determine if what the governor's proposing is what they're going to accept, and that's what they're going to budget, until you get the April estimate, it's just a shot in the dark. It's a dream bar. And that estimate usually comes in end of April, 1st of May.
Yeah.
When do we have to have our approved budget to the city council for them to approve?
We have to approve it in our May meeting,
Okay.
and then get it to them for their June meeting.
So we may have these numbers by the time we get to that point.
We
right?
have something that we can go on so that we can get budgets together in May, and it can always be in.
Right. Any other questions?
Probably should have gave you a little heads up on this question, but last year, we had the first year of the Milligan class with our students and stuff. How did that turn out? As far, we budgeted $35,000. How much of that did we use, and how did that turn out, or do you may
I
have
think
to
the
get back?
first semester was around 12,000, so 11.5 is what we used. It's turned out really well. We're going to try to have Alex is going to come closer to May, and he's going to talk with us about what the outcomes have been. And I made an appointment with Dr. Young from Milligan to sit down and talk about from their standpoint and our standpoint, because it's a big burden for them, is, you know, to have that many faculty come over. It's 10 faculty if you count both semesters, 5 in each semester, you know, coming over to work with our kids. But at the same time, we've had students, just some of the stories have been shared, we've had students say they didn't know where they wanted to go. One of the things they're doing with that program is taking them to different campuses, ETSU, UT, and we've had students make choices based on the fact they've never would have had the opportunity to go to UT, to be transported down there, and they've made a decision to go there. And they've also looking at local colleges, Milligan, Tusculum, King, those type of places around close to us, regional universities, so, and ETSU. So we think it's been successful. I think that the students, we're going to see based on the enrollment we have, and we'll make a decision on moving forward based on what enrollment we have. So if students are wanting to take it, then we'll know that that's probably something that's valuable. If students are not wanting to take it, then we will probably look at that. But I think, I don't know, John, you want to talk about that a bit, our capstone?
Yeah, I think it's really, what I've learned about it, speak to what Dr. Gardner said about hearing student stories, we should know within a month, I think maybe by the end of March, about what the requests are going to look like after we receive waivers, and then look and see how many students request the course, or we communicate what type of load is put on us. Right now, we're offering this year we're at 8 sections built into the master schedule, so depending on, we'll have to build that out based on how we make our teachers available for it, based off the number of requests we have, so make sure we get it. So, like I said, we're up by the end of the month of March, maybe our first May will be able to communicate that. But I think that, I think it's been really beneficial, especially in the fall. A lot of students who hadn't been anywhere had an opportunity to do that. In the springtime, I think more so, we have a lot of students that would have already made decisions and done so. So it's a lot more practical to do in the fall, maybe even make put a heavier weight during that time because our scholarship deadlines, because admission costs are more receptive to hosting tours and such, just because of their schedules. So we'll take a look at that when we see that being requested.
One of the things I talked with Dr. Young about was the fact of how are we going to determine success with it? And if we increase the number of kids going to college or going to TCAT, or, you know, and those visits are important, if we increase that and our number of students wanting to do that, I think that it's a success. But I think it's been a good program. There's obviously things that we'll look at. I think that the teachers coming back, they met at the end of the first semester to talk with the Milligan folks and say, hey, this is where things we need to improve. Things that students gave us feedback, that Milligan professors gave us feedback, our teachers gave feedback, and so they've taken that to try to really hone some things for the second semester. So I think by the time, if we chose to move forward with it next year, I feel like it's going to get better. And you know, just like ETSU has come to the table and talk with us about different dual enrollment opportunities that we haven't had before. Especially one of the things is our VR program. They want to do some articulation with us and try to work on their program as we're building ours. And so it's opened the door. I think we'll see more of that as time comes. You know, we're doing stuff with TCAT, some projects with TCAT, so we'll continue to try to make those partnerships and get our students opportunities where they feel like they can succeed. Any other questions from anyone?
The health insurance premium increase, did you all already cover the medical increase of 6%? Is there any discussion about it?
Well, we're thinking it might be more than that.
Oh.
So,
We budgeted 6.
yeah, I mean, we won't have,
Yeah.
so we're waiting. Now retirement, we think is going to be pretty level. So that's not a good, I mean, it was a little bit this past year, last 2 years actually, but this year, retirement should be okay, but I think health insurance didn't go up at all last year, so I think this year it's good. They'll definitely be,
It went down a little bit last year, I guess.
yeah.
But every year has been, there's only a couple of years it was in the 9s. Just wondered, are we self-funded at all? Was it state plan or
State plan.
the state plan?
We're on the state plan.
I don't know that we could get a better deal, but we might be able to get a state plan administered by Blue Cross that self-fund, basically, keep the premium and then have a stop-loss insurance coverage. A lot of employers are doing it now.
Like a gap.
So basically, if you exceed ours is 75,000, we're responsible, the business, for the first 75.
Right.
And after that, it goes to stop-loss insurance. But it turned out to be cheaper when you had a large number of people. But we administer the same plan. Blue Cross administers it for us. We just have to pay Blue Cross for the, for the actual expenses.
We would love to do that. I mean,
I don't know if we're big enough yet, but
But the state ruled, how many years ago? It's been 2 or 3 years ago, about no gap plans.
okay.
We couldn't do any indemnity plans or gap plans for insurance because our goal was if we could go ahead and, let's say the deductible was $12,700, we would buy a gap plan to cover that $12,700. The employees would have nothing out of pocket for that
Right.
$12,700, and then the state insurance would pick up after that. And so really, they would have much cheaper expense for them.
Yeah.
We could pay $90 for that gap for the $12,000 and make that work, or pay up to a certain amount on it for all kinds of different things, and say, we give $100,000 toward a heart attack or whatever. We have one of those
Mhm.
indemnity plans.
Yeah.
You can buy it as a supplement individually, but you can't buy it as a group anymore.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all. Appreciate it. And we'll start back here in about 30 minutes.
Are we off? Are we off till?
Yeah.